Good evening and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. I'm Hamza Idris. Tonight we examine the Electoral Act 2026, now in force after presidential assent. The law followed weeks of tension at the National Assembly and public protests in several cities. At the heart of the debate is Section 60, subsection 3, which deals with the transmission of election results. Lawmakers harmonized their positions before sending the bill to the president. He signed it, and it is now the legal guide for the 2027 elections. Supporters say the amendments will fix gaps in the system. Critics, on the other hand, argue they may weaken transparency at a time when trust in the electoral process is already low. Beyond result transmission, the Act introduces fresh provisions that could reshape how elections are conducted, monitored and challenged in court. To break it down, we will speak with former INEC National Commissioner and Director of Voter Education at the Independent National Electoral Commission, Barrister Festus Okoye. He joins us to explain what this law means for credibility, accountability, and your vote. Barrister, we are glad to have you.
Thank you so much.
After serious search, you've been very, very busy of recent.
Thank you.
So we are glad to have you finally.
Thank you.
But then before we go into the conversation, one of the major stories today is that Nigeria is now under fresh scrutiny as U.S. Congress submits security report to President Donald Trump. Committees of the United States House of Representatives have formally presented a comprehensive report on Nigeria's security situation to the president. The report, submitted by members of the House Committee on Appropriation and Foreign Affairs, followed months of investigation and on-the-ground assessment. It outlined findings and alleged persecution of Christians and broader extremists in violence. The move comes after Trump redesigned Nigeria as a country of particular concern and directed Congressman Ray Moore and Appropriation Committee Chairman Tom Cole to spearhead a comprehensive probe into alleged religious persecution and terrorism-related violence in the country. You had it, Barrister.
Yes.
We have our problems in Nigeria, but it's like America is now seeing Nigeria as a protectorate. I may be wrong.
For me, the problems of insecurity in this country must be solved by Nigerians. The narrative relating to our challenges and our problems must be driven by Nigerians. There's no doubt whatsoever that Nigeria has very, very serious security problems and very, very serious security challenges. What is important and what is fundamental is for us to recognize the pattern of our problems and the narrative of our problems and find ways and means of dealing with them. If we wait for other countries to come in and solve our problems for us, they will further complicate the problems rather than solve them. Because here we understand what the issues are. We know that we have very, very serious problems of terrorism in the country. We have very serious problems of herders-farmers clashes in the country. We have secessionist agitations, and so on and so forth. We've had kidnappings. We have all sorts of criminal challenges and so on. So what is important is for Nigerians to sit down as a people and as a country and ask the question, all these security challenges we have, in what ways and by what means can we solve them? And then we find ways and means of solving some of these security challenges. Unfortunately, we do not plan and plan ahead. We are never proactive about anything. We wait for things to overwhelm us before we begin to look for ad hoc solutions to them. But other countries that are proactive, other countries that are forward-looking, other serious countries do not wait for things to overwhelm them. They plan and plan ahead. Some countries will design policies and programs that will take care of certain things in 15 years' time. But
15
here,
years?
Yes, but here we do not do that. We wait for the issues to arrive and then we start scouting for solutions. So I think that whether Nigeria is designated as a country of particular interest or whether other countries are looking into what is going on in this country, what is important is our own appreciation of what the issues are and our own ways and means of finding solution to some of our security challenges.
And pundits believe that it's actually high time for Nigerian leaders to understand the fact that what President Trump said, even during his first time, is America first, and whatever interest they are pursuing is for the best interest of America and not any other country. Now here we are, US asking Nigeria to amend some laws to stop using certain laws for certain categories of people, you know, not to associate with certain people, how to now punish certain people, even identifying that Mr. A and Mr. B, they are criminals and all that. Don't you think our leaders are leveraging too much power, conceding too much of their authority, which the electorate gave them, to a foreign entity to decide on how to run the country?
Well, I think the issue is the perception and patriotism and nationalism of the political elite. The political elite in this country don't believe in this country, and they don't believe in democracy. As far as the political elite are concerned, they are comfortable with democratic system of government, and they're also comfortable with undemocratic governments. So whether democracy crashes or collapses is really immaterial. In other countries, the political elite, when there's a serious threat to national interest, when there's a serious threat to national security, they unite and find a solution to it. But in this country, we play politics with ethnicity, we play politics with religion, and we play politics with virtually everything. And that is why it is possible for other countries to dictate to us what is going on. If you look deeply now, and if you put, for instance, the last FCT area council elections in perspective, you will see that the ordinary people of this country, especially the youth, are gradually and more disengaging from the electoral process. But the political elite do not see the danger in it. In other countries, they will see it as a huge challenge. They will see it as a huge problem. The moment we allow our youths and the younger elements to begin to glamorize unconstitutional governments, that means we have a problem. So the political elite in this country are not patriotic, they have no sense of nationalism, and that is why they can allow other countries to dictate what is going on, because they don't have solution to them. The only thing they have solution to is how to sit in government and has to be in power. But in terms of finding creative, strategic, and far-reaching solution to some of the security challenges in this country, they are just simply not interested.
All right, thank you very much on that. Now back to the issue of conversation today, the Electoral Act 2026. You have seen it all. You know, you served as National Commissioner at INEC, and even though not in the open, I think even part of the workings of the 2026 Electoral Act, you served maybe a consultant, I don't know, but in technical aspect of what is needed. Do we really need to even change the Electoral Act?
Well, I've been part of I've been part of the process of the Electoral Act since 2021. I participated in the processes and procedures that bettered the Electoral Act 2022, and I also participated in some of the processes that gave rise to the Electoral Act 2026. Now, if you ask me, one, if the political elite are patriotic, if we have forward-looking political parties, and if we have a vigilant electorate, you can organize free, fair, and transparent election with the Electoral Act 2010 or with the Electoral Act 2022 or with the Electoral Act 2026. But the Constitution, for instance, and laws have inbuilt mechanisms on how to respond to societal changes in terms of scientific, technological, and social developments. So laws must respond to some of these issues, respond to some of these challenges. It is in the application and operation of laws that you see where the gaps are and see where the loopholes are. So the lawmakers also have the right to amend laws in order to cover loopholes and also in order to respond to societal challenges. In some other countries, the courts intervene and expound the law. so that it will become clearer to everybody. So to answer your question, yes, it is possible to conduct free, fair, and transparent elections without amending this law. But on the other hand, it is also important for us to take into consideration societal movements and societal developments in terms of our laws, in order for the laws to respond to some of these challenges and some of these problems.
Now, I think what tested the amended constitution was the election we had at, in FCT at the weekend.
Yes.
Another one in Kano,
Yes.
Rivers, and all that. But what we had was that about 7.5% of voters turn out for the election, especially in the Federal Capital Territory. As someone who served as National Commissioner, voter education, what do you think was the problem?
I think we need to do some deeper analysis and deeper investigation on what led to the abysmal turnout of voters during the FCT Council elections. Now, I think that, one, from a few people I've spoken to, some of our youths are disengaging. I don't want to say they have disengaged from the electoral process, and they believe that this system is not working for them. Secondly, there are people who believe that their votes will not count, no matter what they do, and no matter how many times they go to the polling units. Thirdly, I think that we did not have sufficient civic and voter education to energize people, to ginger people to come out and exercise their democratic franchise. But as I pointed out, we need to study the trend and the pattern and really find out what went wrong. But whatever went wrong, I think it's not good for our democracy, it's not good for our electoral process, it's not good for our people, and also it's not good for the political parties and the political elite.
All right. Now, beyond the, participation, very dismal. Do you think there is now a kind of legitimacy crisis? Because when you have 100 people expected to vote, and at the end of the day, you ended up with 7 people participating, is that not something that can also be subjected to maybe legal scrutiny as a lawyer? Mm-hmm. If somebody feels that the majority, even though they didn't come out to vote,
yes,
they are disenfranchised, can someone challenge this? Because it's like we have lost count of now the speed at which voter participation is disappearing from the political scene.
Well, in Nigeria, we don't have forced voting. Voting is voluntary. If you like, you register as a voter, and then on election day, you show up, and then you exercise your democratic franchise. In some countries, voting is mandatory. In Nigeria, voting is not mandatory. Now, in terms of elections in Nigeria, there's a threshold. So, if, for instance, in a state constituency or in a federal constituency, you have 100,000 registered voters,
yes,
and only 10 people show up, and out of those 10 people, two persons only voted for one candidate, and then other candidates had 1-1.
Yes,
the Electoral Management Body must declare the person who had 2 votes as the winner of the election, because the person has satisfied that one threshold. So it is immaterial whether 100 persons turn up, 100,000 persons turn up, or whether 10 persons only turn up in a legislative election, for instance. But in a governorship election or in a presidential election, a presidential candidate must score majority of lawful votes cast in the election, and also score a quarter of the votes cast in 2/3 of all the states of the federation. Yeah. So in that particular instance, there's a threshold that a presidential or a governorship candidate must meet. But in a legislative election, for instance, the threshold is completely different. The threshold is one plus.
Was it an oversight or deliberate? Because it doesn't matter who becomes local government chairman, and at the end of the day, people, end up electing or being imposed, candidates that don't even know their role as local government chairmen, councillors, and all that. And should there be introspection from those who are making our laws in order to strengthen that part of our nationhood?
No, the threshold for electing a chairmanship candidate for an area council and for local governments is different from the threshold of electing members of the State Assembly and members of the House of Reps. But what is important is that the Electoral Management Body has been given the power and the role in the Electoral Act for civic and voter education. The political parties also have a role to make sure that they get out the votes on election day. Civil society groups and organizations also have a role to play, and the media also has a role to play. So if they did not succeed in energizing people and showing people that they need to come out and that their coming out will make a difference and that their coming out will assist them to elect a candidate that will serve their interests better, that means there has been a failure within the realm of the stakeholders. So I think that there's something that is fundamentally wrong. There's something that is not right. Political parties must re-examine what happened in the FCT. Civil society groups and organizations must examine what happened. The media must examine what happened. And all the critical stakeholders in the Nigerian polity must examine what happened. Because the danger is that if we experience 7% participation, and in another election it becomes 5%. What that means is that people have withdrawn from the electoral process, have withdrawn from democracy, and it is a danger. What we must ask at all times is, if democracy is in peril, if democracy is in danger, if democracy is threatened, do we have a critical mass that we come out and stand and say, no, democracy is the best form of government, we must sit and defend it? And that is what is lacking as at now. So we must go back to the drawing table, find ways and means of re-engaging the younger elements in this country into the electoral process, and also find ways and means of re-energizing the electoral process so that the people will believe in this democracy and stop looking towards unconstitutional governments as the best solution to our problems.
Okay, before we go into technical aspects of the 2026 Electoral Act, I want to take, because somebody sent us a message, and like a puzzle, because I was actually touched by what he said, going by the manner, still on, voter apathy.
Yes.
He said it's like a terrible memorandum or referendum on our politicians, because there is the likelihood that on a certain day, somewhere, somehow, you will go out and you will not find a single person that will be willing to even cast his vote. And then he now said, in a situation where we find ourselves in that, conundrum, what can we do? Meaning that we will not even have leaders.
I look at it from a different trajectory.
Okay.
And my own trajectory is, when people are no longer going to the polling units, when people no longer have faith in the political elite, when people no longer have faith in the governance process, and when people no longer have faith in the political system that we have designed for ourselves, that means there's a problem. And that means there's danger. So, since we have seen with the FCT area council elections that there's a problem, I think that all the political parties must go back to the drawing table. Their leaders must go back to the drawing table. They must ask the question, what is it that we are not doing right? Or what is it that we are doing right that we need to emphasize more, so that we can give the Nigerian people hope, so that we can rebuild trust in the electoral process and make sure that our people have faith in democracy. If they do that, we'll begin to find solutions to some of these problems. If they don't do that, that means they are giving ammunition, so to say. They are giving energy to those who are campaigning for unconstitutional governments as the best form of government. And for me, those people who are in this frame of mind do not understand what living under an unconstitutional government entails. And that is why the idealizing unconstitutional forms of government. Democracy is the best form of government for this country. The issue is not democracy. The issue has to do with those we have elected to govern us. Some of them do not believe in democracy, do not believe in democratic processes, and do not believe in democratic procedures. And that is why in some of their utterances and actions, you can see some level of brazenness, you can see some level of autocracy, you can see some level of disdain for the people. But in a democracy, the people are number one. The people are sovereign because you derive power from the sovereign power of the people expressed through their votes. So when you begin to treat the votes of the people as not important, when you relegate the people to the background and they are no longer the repository of authority, when authority is derived from elsewhere, it becomes a huge challenge, it becomes a huge problem. And that is what we must try by all means to avoid.
Now, talking about autocratic tendencies and all that, some Nigerians have started expressing fears that, of course, we have elected representatives, but they are displaying some of those tendencies. For instance, why is Section 60, subsection 1,
yes,
remains a subject of debate in the polity? And why is it that the House of Reps, initially, they had the buy-in of generality of Nigerians, going by the position they took in respect to this section, which is contrary to the position taken by the Senate. But at the end of the day, they also kept in and aligned with what the Senate did. And then few hours after, the president assented to it. Are you worried? What is so special about that section?
I think that most of the people who took position on the issue of Section 60 of the Electoral Act did not understand what the issues are and the issues around Section 60. Some people believed that Section 60 was about what they called real-time electronic transmission of results, and they stopped there. But that was not what both the House of Representatives and the Senate provided. What the House of Representatives provided for real-time electronic transmission of results to IREV, while the Senate did not like the word real-time electronic transmission of results to IREV. Now, for me, what is important is trying to understand what IREV is. IREV is INEC Result Viewing Portal. INEC Result Viewing Portal.
So it's an acronym.
It's an acronym. So it is like every other portal established by the Electoral Management Body. Before the 2023 general election, INEC established what we call Candidates Nomination Portal, through which political parties uploaded the list and particulars of their nominated candidates to a particular portal called the Candidates Nomination Portal. The Electoral Management Body also established the Observer Portal, through which accredited domestic observers uploaded the particulars of the observers to a particular portal. The same thing with the media, and the same thing with polling agents. So the IREV is one of those portals established by the Electoral Management Body for public viewing, to upload from EC8A to a particular portal to enable Nigerians to see what is going on at the level of the polling units. Now, in terms of result transmission, results transmitted to IREV are not used for purposes of collating results, because the collation portal is different from the IREV portal. And the Supreme Court, in 2023, in the case of Oyetola, and also in the case of Peter Obi, and INEC, and also Atiku Abubakar, made it very clear that the INEC Result Viewing Portal is not a collation portal. So results of elections do not go there. What happens at the level of the polling unit is that the moment elections are over, the presiding officer at the level of the polling unit we sort out the votes. The votes will be counted and announced. And then the votes recorded by each candidate or each political party will be imputed into Form EC8A. Thereafter, a copy will be pasted at the polling unit. And then one copy of that Form EC8A will be snapped and uploaded into the IREF portal for public viewing. For public viewing and for public accountability and nothing more. Then the presiding officer will carry the hard copy of Form EC8A together with the beavers, together with the cubicles.
And beavers, I think, is for verification.
Yes.
Which captures and prepares potential voter, right?
Exactly. The presiding officer and the assistant presiding officers will carry all this to the next level of collation, which is the registration area collation center, or what you call the wards. And we have 8,809 of them in Nigeria. When the presiding officer gets to the collation center, the presiding officer will hand over the hard copy of that Form EC8A to the collation officer. The presiding officer will also hand over the beavers to the collation officer and all the other forms used for the election. And then the collation officer will maybe collect between maybe 12 and 25 polling units and enter the results manually into Form EC8B, which is the registration area collated results. So this is how it happens. So for IREV, you as a voter, you can print out the results that have been uploaded to the IREV on your own.
To keep it for my record.
For your own records, for your own viewing, for your own enjoyment, and for your own auditing. You can audit it. But political parties can ask for certified true copy of that from EC8A that was transmitted to the IREV or was uploaded to the IREV. And they can take that in court. But who will tender that from EC8A? It is an accredited polling agent of a political party. Somebody who was at that polling unit on that particular day and saw what happened. Not just an individual on the street. So it is a very, very technical issue. The commission, as far back as 2021, told Nigerians that beavers can perform four different functions. During voters registration exercise, it is that beavers that is used for voter registration exercise. During voter registration exercise, the commission calls it the IVED, INEC Voter Enrollment Device.
Okay, at that level.
At that level. So it is used to enroll voters and also verify voters. During election, it is called the bimodal voter accreditation device. It is used to accredit voters in order to capture their fingerprints or facials. At that level, we call it the beavers.
The same machine?
The same machine. After elections, you use the same machine to snap from EC8A and upload it to the portal. At that point, we call it the IREV. Now, that machine also has capacity to be used as an electronic voting machine if it is energized, if it is reconfigured, but that has not been activated. So when it is activated and people now vote during elections using that electronic voting machine, then results from that electronic voting machine can go directly to a collation portal and be used for purposes of collation. That is the only time you can realize real-time electronic transmission of election results.
Which is actually the fourth stage, if I understand the technicalities around the machine.
Exactly.
Now, why was the National Assembly reluctant to adopt the word real-time? Why?
I really don't know what the issues are. I really don't understand what their fears were. But what the whole issue is that most of them, or majority of them, prefer manual collation of results.
In order to give them room to manipulate?
I really don't know whether it's to give them room to manipulate.
But in your estimation, this machine, which has, for the first time I'm hearing it, because we were meant to believe that there are different sets of machines that do all of these things. Now maybe it's just like the iPad there, or this machine in front of me. Now, does it require internet to do all of these functions, or there is an inbuilt mechanism in it that it can do some of these technical issues?
It comes with a power bank, and it comes with other accessories. Now, when elections are over, and the presiding officer has snapped the form EC8A, if there is no network at that particular point, it stores the information in. The moment it comes into contact with network, it transmits immediately. So what the presiding officer has imputed, he cannot undo it until he gets a network. Now, this whole issue about network, I think, is an unnecessary debate. The commission there is no registration area in this country where there is no network. None.
Only 800.
There is none. There is none. Don't forget about all this hogwash about network connectivity. It's just a lame excuse. Mind you, before IREV was deployed, the commission conducted elections, either off-cycle elections or by-elections in different places. And in all these places, it has used the INEC Result Viewing Portal to upload polling unit level results. During the 2023 general elections, I acknowledge what happened with the upload of the presidential election results. But in terms of state assembly election results, in terms of House of Representatives, and in terms of senatorial elections, over 95% of all the results were uploaded in real time, and from different parts of the country.
So the issue of internet was not?
No, the issue of the internet is a lame excuse, because in 2021, when this debate was reached, this debate had taken place. And because of this debate, the commission produced a document relating to its power to upload polling unit results, and even its power to electronically transmit polling unit results. And the commission said, yes, it has the power to do that, and that in terms of network connectivity in different parts of the country, that there was no problem. This debate took place in 2021. Go back and check.
We are aware of that, yes. But then, as you rightly said, National Assembly, State Assembly, Governorship, over 95% uploaded. As an insider, somehow, why was it difficult to upload 95% of the presidential election that time?
No, I really don't want to engage in that
conversation.
Debate, in that conversation.
But why? Because Nigerians are still asking questions.
Because the then deputy director of in charge of ICT in INEC testified before the presidential election tribunal, where he gave a vivid account of what really happened with the upload of the presidential election results to IREV. Now, but the truth of the matter is that in the main, IREV is not a collation portal. None of the political parties in 2023 was able. In Nigeria, we have, for the 2023 general election, we had a total of 176,846 polling units. No political party deployed polling agents to the 176,846 polling units,
including the ruling party.
None of them.
They could not mobilize, and
the polling unit is the main thing. That is where issues are. That is where issues are. So if you cannot deploy a polling agent, an INEC accredited polling agent, to a polling unit, you have a problem, because the law is very clear. The moment elections are over, if a polling agent is at the polling unit, after the presiding officer has imputed the scores of the candidates or the scores of the political parties, the presiding officer will stamp and sign. And then the polling agents of the parties, if they are available, will countersign before it goes into the, before it's uploaded into the INEC result viewing portal. And a copy is given to the polling agent, if available. So every political party that deployed polling agent to the 176,846 polling units ought to have a copy of the results as it emanated from the polling unit. But if you did not deploy any polling agent, there's nobody there to protect your interest. So that is the issue. The IREV issue had nothing to do with the collation of results. It had absolutely nothing to do with result collation. Result collation takes place at the level of the polling. The results are announced at the level of the polling units and collated at the 8,809 registration areas as the first level of collation. Who are the people at the polling unit? The people at the polling unit, most of the presiding officers are called members. The assistant presiding officer 1, 2, and 3 are either core members or students of federal tertiary institutions in their penultimate year. Who are the people in the 8,809 collation centers? These are lecturers from federal tertiary institutions. So you hardly find an INEC staff at any of the polling units on election day, and you can hardly find an INEC staff at the 8,809 registration areas on election day, except those we call RATEX, those who assist the collation officers in terms of result tabulation and to make sure that they get their mathematics right. Okay,
Barrister, was it not part of the efforts to address this lacuna that during the debate for the 2026 amendment,
yes,
right, of the Electoral Act,
yes,
some legislators wanted some of these issues that, you know, hinder diligent prosecution,
yes,
of cases during the 2023 general elections,
yes,
to be addressed? Why the pushback? Is it that the legislators, they want us to have worse scenario by 2027, that they didn't actually allow some of these amendments, as, you know, even the Supreme Court, you know, as it said, you cannot use IREV and all that to challenge the election because it was just meant for viewing. Now, some legislators, they want this thing to be made law so that it can serve as proof for whoever wants to go and challenge anomaly in court. Why the pushback? Are we not actually packaging another grand plan for massive rigging for 2027?
My worry and my problem with the debates around Section 60 revolved around the fact that people were saying we want real-time electronic transmission of results, and they stopped there. But what was in the bill was real-time electronic transmission of results to IREV, which for me did not address the issue, did not address the problem. And for me, it gave some Nigerians false hope that what people were campaigning for was real-time electronic transmission of results to the collation portal, which was not true. So for me, when we are fighting for a cause, we must really understand what we are fighting for and fight for it frontally, rather than fighting for something that is completely useless. Because as far as I'm concerned, the Supreme Court has told you that IREF portal is not a collation portal. It is only meant for public viewing. So why are you expending energy? For me,
okay,
what they ought to have done, yes, what they ought to have done was to fight for real-time electronic transmission of election results to a collation portal, so that if the and then we will have some what I call duality. If the presiding officer comes with a physical result, the collation officer will also have the benefit of electronically transmitted results to the collation portal. So if there's a discrepancy between the manually generated result and the electronically generated result, the electronically collated one will take precedence because it's electronically transmitted. But that was not the debate that was going on. The debate was to the IRF portal and not to the collation portal. And
so they left the major issue and dissipated energy on a minor issue.
As far as I'm concerned.
But is it possible to now do what you said? Do we have the capacity?
Capacity to do what?
The real-time transmission using the machine at our disposal now.
Yeah, but it's just to reconfigure the beavers. It can do anything, just to reconfigure it.
It has the capacity.
It has the capacity.
It can do it.
It can do it.
Why is it that INEC is silent? It didn't come out to say, look, we can do this thing.
No, if you want to talk about, you should go and look at the memo the commission submitted to the Senate Committee on Electoral Matters and the House Committee on Electoral Matters when they were doing their joint session, and see whether what INEC recommended.
Have you seen it?
Yes, I've seen the memo.
Okay. Have they made that recommendation?
I cannot offer tell you the exact recommendation the commission.
But something like that.
I cannot really tell you the exact recommendation the commission made. But ultimately, the Senate Committee on Electoral Matters and the House Committee on Electoral Matters, whether they see jointly or separately, at the end of the day, it is the National Assembly at plenary that makes the determination. You can make suggestions, you can make recommendations, but you are not a lawmaker. You were not elected to make laws. They are the ones given the constitutional power to make laws for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What all of us can do is to make recommendations and to make suggestions, but ultimately, the lawmaking power resides with them, and they don't share it with anybody except the president in terms of assent.
So, as I said, as a legal practitioner, as someone who has been on ground, you also served at the West Committee, right?
Yes, I was there.
You know everything about this thing. Why are the legislators reluctant to give Nigerians a document that can guarantee free and fair election? What is their fear?
Well, you know, as I normally say, laws are not neutral. Sometimes lawmakers write their own personal and personalized interests into law. Sometimes they write the interests of their political parties into law. Sometimes they write the interests of pressure groups into law. And sometimes they write the interests of lobbyists into law. And sometimes they consult their constituents in terms of lawmaking, and the interests of their constituents are imputed. But laws are not neutral, and laws have never been neutral. So, if a legislator has never won free, fair, and transparent election, if a legislator is an expert in snatching ballot boxes and snatching ballot papers and writing results, there's a tendency that that particular legislator may like that to continue. If a legislator has lost an election or won an election and it has been stolen, there's a possibility that that legislator will be fighting to plug the loopholes that led to that type of situation. So it is a clash between those who want the status quo to remain because the status quo serves them or they benefit from it, and those who want to change the current state of things in order to make things much, much better. So it's a struggle. But looking at the 2026 Electoral Act, there was progress.
You think there is progress?
Oh yes, in some sections of the law. And
like which one? Okay, in section 60, is there progress, or we have gone back?
No, there was no progress. We didn't achieve anything in terms of section 60.
We only dissipated our energy.
It was a dissipation of energy.
Can you say it was deliberate obstruction?
I cannot say it was deliberate obstruction because what happened, the lawmakers wrote the law the way they saw it in terms of their own worldview, and also in the terms of what they believe we sued them.
So it could be self-serving.
No, as far as I'm concerned, it was self-serving because if they had gone back to their constituencies to sample opinion on what their constituencies want, they would have come back with a completely different result. But in this one, They believe that they are protecting their own personal interests, protecting their own party interests, and also protecting their coming back to the legislature. So it was not patriotic. It was not
so
in the interest of the
so
people.
these options of now imputing in IREV, and then when it fails, put it in the paper and all that. You think there is a manhole there, which likely will lead to, manipulation of results?
No, you see, if you look at Section 60, subsection 3, what the legislators have said, and the final document they passed, says that there will be electronic transmission of results to the IREV after the presiding officer has imputed the results from EC8A, it has been signed and stamped and countersigned. But they said provided that in all circumstances that from EC8A, the manual from EC8A shall be the primary source of collation of results. So the dominant form of collation of results remains the manually collated result. So there has not been any progress in terms of Section 60.
Or making the electoral process stronger.
No, there are some other sections
which I want us to now quickly discuss. But as far as 60 subsection 3 is concerned,
I can't see the progress in
wasted
I can't see.
Okay, then what about primaries now? Many Nigerians, I believe, they don't know direct or indirect. Now they have made direct primaries mandatory, right?
Yes.
Okay, what is the meaning of direct primaries?
Direct primaries is where every party member is given an opportunity of voting, especially at the ward level. So the moment you are a card-carrying member of a party, you are entitled to vote in direct primaries. Now, something I've been ruminating over something. In 2021, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria refused to sign the Electoral Act because the lawmakers removed indirect primaries from the law. And President Buhari said, no, you can't do that because indirect primaries is one of the internationally accepted means of electing or selecting candidates. And that moreover, this was what he said in 2021. That moreover, that because of the security challenges in this country, that most of the political parties will not, and the security agencies will not have the capacity of monitoring or policing direct primaries in all parts of Nigeria, especially places with security challenges.
But now these people say we should have it.
That is
it deliberate to actually disenfranchise or to cause chaos in your estimation?
I think that direct primaries is good, but political parties should be left to determine the type of primaries.
Okay, instead of now making it and narrowing it to just one option, which they did.
Look, you have seen some parties that conducted direct primaries. Somebody will count 1, 20, 50, 100, 1,000.
So it's like they have widened the gulf of manipulating the process. So
direct primaries is not free from manipulation, it's not free from corruption.
What about campaign spending, Barrister?
This issue of campaign spending, unless we want to deceive ourselves, political parties even spend more than what is in the law now. They spend more than what is in the law.
And no instrument to checkmate them.
Most funds in this country hardly pass through the banks, especially funds made for campaigns. So I think that what has happened is that the campaign spending is now consistent with what political parties have been spending, and also consistent with the threshold in our economy. That's my own.
I have just 1 minute to wrap up the program, but I am compelled to ask you the compression of the, electoral timelines. Do you think is also another booby trap in a way?
Well, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria must leave office on the 28th day of May 2027. And the legislators must leave office on the 8th day of June 2027. So, if you look at the electoral calendar, what that means is that by the provisions of section 132 subsection 1 and 132 subsection 2 of the Constitution, we have 150-day and 30-day window within which to conduct elections. So the electoral management body can adjust their timeline and timetable within that particular framework. So I don't think there's anything fundamental in that.
Okay, finally, I'm compelled to ask this. Have we made the 2022 Electoral Act better, or we actually made it worse by the amendments we've witnessed in 2025?
I think that there has been marginal improvement from 2022 to 2026.
But will it improve the outcome of 2027 election positively, or we will have more litigations?
I cannot make that determination, but as far as I'm concerned, there has been marginal improvement, especially in terms of getting political parties to have a digital membership register and for them to submit this digital membership register to the electoral management body. And only those whose names are in that register can contest party primaries and can become candidates. So I think there has been marginal improvement.
Thank you very much, Barrister Festus Okoye, former National Commissioner and Director of Voter Education at the Independent National Electoral Commission, for coming to this program and for actually dissecting some of these technicalities, which I strongly believe that it will improve the understanding of the electorate. And we want to have you.
Yes, I think that if we continue to do this, people will have a better understanding of what the law is and also a better understanding of their role in advancing Nigerian democracy.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
And yours, that's a wrap on today's package of Daily Politics on Trust TV. From here, I'm Hamza Idris, wishing you all the best. Good night.